It's really weird this because having not actually been doing a great deal of work recently, and then suddenly I'm trying to talk about my practice from my living room, which feels really weird. So I might start off a bit slowly, but bear with me. I'm sure I'll get into the swing of it. So, like the title of the session suggests, I'm going to talk about collaboration, dance collaboration with visual arts. So I will talk a little bit about where my interest in that came from and how I sort of developed and progressed with that with collaboration. And I'll talk about collaboration generally, but I'm mainly looking at visual arts because that's the area that I've had the most experience in. So that's anything from costume, film, well, mainly costume and film actually. So when I studied dance at uni, I always was interested in the visual elements. I was always interested in bringing props or costume or video projection, and really interested in the sound elements, so how the sound elements worked with the performance. And so it was never just about the dancing, it was always about this the other elements and this bigger picture. And when I partly because I was studied dance at Liverpool John Moores, but it was a physical theatre pathway, so there was a lot of scope for doing that. And then when I graduated in 2016, I got involved with an organisation. They don't exist anymore, but they were called New Work Yorkshire, and it was about new work referred to sort of live art stuff that couldn't really be categorised, and I just fell sort of really into place with that because what I was interested in didn't really fall necessarily into dance or physical theatre. It was somewhere sort of its own. So when I started being involved with them, it was mainly like residencies, mentoring. They did a lot of platforms, so I performed at quite a lot of their platforms, and very early on started experimenting with recorded sound. So that was recorded sound and video. So I'd always incorporate that into my work, but I was always a little bit tentative or a little bit scared about the idea of actually bringing somebody in to collaborate with me on that, because as a solo artist, and I'm sure this will maybe be familiar to some other people, if you work alone and you're used to working alone, it can be quite daunting, the idea of actually working with somebody else and sharing your practice in that way. So it had to come really naturally, and it wasn't until 2014, so I'd been working for like 8 years until before I started actually collaborating with somebody else. And it was I had this idea. I was still bringing lots of props onto the stage, and I don't know if everybody's seen things that I've done with a tent, and I used to use a lot of stuff like that, or still do. So I was really interested in like the visual aspect of it and using these different props as canvases. And I was reading a book. I've got the book here. And it's a book about mindfulness. So it's not anything to do with my practice, but this really inspired me to create the first collaborative piece that I made. And it's about, I was reading this for my own sort of mental health and sanity. And it was talking a lot about remaining present in the moment. And it made me realise that I wasn't doing that. I was travelling off everywhere in my mind all the time, and in quite an involuntary way. I was just constantly elsewhere, and that made me think that it gave me the idea to make a solo piece based around that, because a lot of my solo work in the early days especially was very sort of not quite autobiographical, but really based on my own experiences. And I felt like the best way to do that would be, I wanted to look at being in more than one place at any one time. So I thought that a good way to show that would be via video projection. So I started trying to do it by myself, and it was really tricky. And then I had no funding. It was just a self-funded project that I just started to mess around with. And fortunately, a friend introduced me to a friend who was a filmmaker but was doing a lot of corporate stuff, and she wanted to get some experience in working in a more artistic, collaborative way. So we had no money, but we just set about making this piece, and it was just real fun. We just had loads of fun with it. We wanted to capture the idea of being physically somewhere but mentally somewhere else. So I'm going to show a clip in a minute to give an example, and it's very rough and ready. But it got that sort of fun element, and it was we weren't looking at the sort of the darker side of mental health. We were looking at this side where actually it was quite chaotic, and it brought quite a lot of fun and humour to it. So yeah, one of the things that we focused on was, well, I had like three different locations, places that my mind would travel to quite a lot. So one of them was going shopping, like really mundane, going shopping, making tea. Another one was going, like, being under the sea, or being at the beach, so involving water. And another one was being in the dance studio or working. So we worked with those three things and combined them mainly. So I'll show you a little clip of what we did. And we'd just get together in the morning, we'd have a little brainstorm of ideas, we'd chat about what we wanted to do, we'd bounce ideas off each other, we'd sometimes have a glass of wine, and we'd have a laugh about it, and then we'd go to the park, or we ended up in Tesco's in the middle of the night filming guerrilla style with no permission, threatening to get kicked out, and just ran around and acted like lunatics, and it was real funny. So I'm going to show the clip, and this is the very first version of this piece that I made.